Welcome back to the edge of your seat.
We're sorry for the delay. Here's 3 films that came out this weekend.
In 2014, a beloved children's classic about a well-meaning but troublesome anthropomorphized furry animal in a blue jacket was lovingly brought into 21st century cinema. This was done by honouring the character's past, whilst integrating him into the present. His timeless qualities made to appeal to fans of every generation.
We get the comparison? Let's move on.
Peter Rabbit stars the obnoxiously unfunny James Corden as the psychotic delinquent of a main character, convinced of his right to land and happy to destroy whatever and whoever stands in his path to personal glory. When the old Mr. McGregor dies...
And it was played for a laugh, because dark humour like poking live a heart attack victim is so appropriate for your 4-year-olds.
Peter decides to continue his brutal crusade against a charmingly nerdy new owner of the garden, Thomas McGregor, played by Donald Gleeson. Thomas just wants to flip the house for a profit to kickstart a new toy shop, but soon finds he's taken a liking to his nature-loving neighbour, Bee.
Like Beatrix. Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it?
Unfortunately, Peter Rabbit has creepy Oedipal feelings for Bee, so sets out to kill Thomas with a series of slapstick skits stolen from The Simpsons and a mocking disregard for food allergies. Thankfully, the bunny fails. But he also fails to learn any kind of lesson or face any kind of comeuppance. It's probably clear by now that we don't much care for this film.
I don't think Laura would. She was very protective of her work.
But it's not just because of the horrible characterisation. It also has terrible excuses for comedy and character development. Unfunny jokes will be explained to death, then repeated 2 minutes later. And then 2 minutes after that, for good measure. Characters literally announce their motivations and flaws. So meta. So funny. Because subtle writing is dead, and children need spoon-feeding. And this is probably its worst crime. It treats its audience like morons and holds its source material in contempt. Just avoid it. Let's be honest, there's never been a genuinely good film made by adapting a video game. Sure, some of them are enjoyable, but none of them have surpassed the limitation of their own genre. I would love to say that the new Tomb Raider film has finally broken the pattern, but... okay, so in 2013, Square Enix released Tomb Raider. It's a very good game that reinvented Lara Croft for the Katniss Everdeen generation, a determined young archer dropped into a character-defining crucible and forced to endure all measure of physical and mental pain. It's this game, with its emphasis on survival rather than puzzle solving, that informs the new film. And at least aesthetically, it's a brilliant adaptation. Large swathes feel like gameplay, cutscenes, or quick-time events brought to life on the big screen. But it's just not possible to compress the whole game's narrative and character arc into 2 hours. So most of what made the game so compelling is lost in translation. Though token elements of plot remain, the island of Yamatai, Queen Himiko, the ship Endurance, mythology and evolving characters are squeezed out to make room for boring daddy issues, and some ultimately pointless chase sequences in London and Hong Kong. Gotta get in on that Chinese market somewhere, eh? Alicia Vikander is a very capable actor, trying to elevate the material, but Lara herself is left as just another bland avatar, something that the new game strove strongly against. So whilst it's undoubtedly a cut above the majority of game adaptations, it's mediocre as a film in its own right. With Easter fast approaching, it's little surprise to see another attempt to tell the story on film. But there have been so many versions of the greatest story ever told, so how to differentiate? Garth Davis, director of last year's excellent Lion, has decided the best way is to tell it from a different perspective, that of the most prominent of Jesus' female followers, Mary of Magdalene. It's a decent idea, especially in these times, but it just doesn't work. Rooney Mara puts a lot of effort into playing the title character, but she's such a quiet and passive force in the film that it barely seems to matter. Anyone expecting further insight into the character will leave frustrated. Once Jesus, referred to here as the Rabbi, turns up, Mary becomes little more than a passenger to this troubled lunatic. I don't mean to offend anyone by saying that. Remember, C.S. Lewis said of Jesus, either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman. Joaquin Phoenix is clearly playing the latter. This might have been interesting in a humanistic take on the story, but the film leaves no room for vagueness on Jesus' miracles. They definitely did happen in this. And it's this sense of having cake and eating it too that makes Mary Magdalene such a frustratingly dull film.
I was totally ready to fall asleep in the cinema.
It wants to be revisionist, but leaves out the most interesting story elements. It wants to be feminist, but can't give us a protagonist worth rooting for. I just don't know who it's aimed at. Regular filmgoers with little to no faith will find little to interest them, fundamentalists will likely be affronted by the edits and omissions, and the end seems to suggest it's got a general contempt for organised religion. There's no point in bothering with it, unless you count it as a Lenten penance to sit through dull films. Sorry again for the break. Business as usual will continue from this week, though we will be doing a catch-up episode to look at all of the films that we watched between last episode and this episode. That should be out sometime later this week. Okay, so till next time, bye!